He thought it was just another day in court. A teenage boy, nervous but innocent, standing before a judge who held his future in her hands. The room was cold, the stares heavy, and the words that fell from the bench cut deeper than any blade. Life. In that single moment, childhood ended, hope collapsed, and centuries of injustice echoed through the silence. But what no one in that courtroom knew, what the judge never imagined, was that this young man carried a secret powerful enough to shake the system at its core. Because behind him stood someone no one expected. Someone who could change everything. What happens when justice meets power and a broken system faces the truth it tried to bury? His name was Marcus, 17 years old, full of dreams, and like any teenager, he thought about school, friends, and basketball more than anything else. He wasn't perfect, but he was hopeful, planning for college, working late nights at a small diner to help his mom keep the lights on. For most people, he was just another kid trying to make something of himself. But Marcus carried something heavier than homework and part-time shifts. Every time he walked down the street, every time he stepped into a store, he felt the weight of being judged before he spoke a word. Still, he pushed forward, believing that if he stayed focused, stayed good, the world would give him a fair chance. That belief was about to be tested in a place where fairness should have mattered most: the courtroom. What Marcus didn't know was that this day would not only decide his future, it would reveal a truth that could shake the entire system. Marcus had never been in trouble before, not once. Yet that morning, as he sat at the defendant's table, it didn't matter. The courtroom was packed, faces staring, whispers echoing. To them, he wasn't a kid with dreams. He was just another black teenager standing trial in a system that had already written his story. The charge? Something he didn't do. A stolen car, found blocks away from his neighborhood. He had never even touched it. But when the police arrived that night, it didn't matter that Marcus was walking home from work, still in his diner uniform. All they saw was a young black boy in the wrong place at the wrong time. He tried to explain, but the cuffs clicked shut before his words could leave his mouth. Now, in front of the judge, those same assumptions weighed heavier than any evidence. The prosecutor painted Marcus as reckless, dangerous, a threat to society. Each word sliced through the air like a blade. His lawyer objected, but objections didn't erase the looks on the jury's faces. They weren't listening to Marcus. They were listening to the story the system had told about boys like him for centuries. Marcus's mother sat in the gallery, tears sliding down her cheeks. She had raised him alone, working 2 jobs, believing education and discipline would protect him. But here, in this room, none of that seemed to matter. The rules were different. For kids like Marcus, and everyone knew it, even if no one dared to say it out loud. Hours turned into days. Witnesses came and went, most with little to say. No fingerprints, no proof, just suspicion. Still, the tension in the courtroom built like a storm. Every glance from the jury, every stern look from the judge, it all felt like the walls were closing in. And then came the moment. The prosecutor stood, voice sharp, words deliberate. "Your Honor, the state recommends life in prison." The silence afterward was suffocating. Marcus froze. Life? At 17? His chest tightened, his throat closed. Around him, the world blurred, and for the first time, he realized this wasn't just a trial. It was a fight for his very existence. But what no one expected, what no one could have predicted, was what happened next. Because when Marcus picked up the phone, trembling hands clutching the receiver, The name he spoke would bring the entire courtroom to a standstill. The words, "life in prison," echoed like a sentence carved into stone. Marcus felt the air drain from his chest, his legs weak beneath the table. He wanted to scream, to fight back, to tell the truth. But the courtroom had swallowed his voice, long before the trial began. To them, he wasn't Marcus anymore. He wasn't a son, a student, a kid with dreams. He was just another body, another number to be locked away. The judge leaned forward, expression cold and final. The gavel lifted. This was it. At 17, Marcus's entire future was about to be erased. His mother sobbed quietly in the back row, a sound so raw it seemed to crack the walls themselves. And then Marcus picked up the phone. His hands trembled as he dialed the only number he knew could change everything. For a moment, the courtroom buzzed with confusion. The bailiff moved to stop him, but it was too late. Marcus spoke into the receiver, voice breaking but clear. "Dad, it's happening." Every head turned when the heavy doors swung open. Silence fell like a curtain. The man who walked in didn't need an introduction. His presence filled the room. His authority, undeniable. The U.S. Attorney General, the highest law enforcement official in the country, was Marcus's father. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The prosecutor froze mid-sentence. The judge's gavel lowered, her hand shaking for the first time. Suddenly, the boy they had dismissed as powerless was no longer alone. The system that had tried to bury him was about to face the weight of its own hypocrisy. Because in that moment, it wasn't just Marcus on trial, it was the very idea of justice in America. The courtroom never felt the same after that moment. The judge, once so certain, now weighed every word with hesitation. The prosecutor's confidence faltered. The jury's stares softened. In the presence of the U.S. Attorney General, the story they had tried to force onto Marcus unraveled. Within days, the charges were dismissed. On paper, Marcus walked out free. But freedom doesn't erase scars. He left that building with his head high, yet the weight of the experience pressed deep into his soul. At 17, he had seen how fragile justice could be, how easily a life could be stolen not by guilt, but by prejudice. For Marcus, the lesson was clear. His name and his future had been spared not because the system was fair, but because of who stood behind him. And he knew countless others never had that shield. That's the truth this story cannot hide. For every Marcus who survives, there are others who don't. Black boys and girls, men and women, who are silenced before they're even heard. Families who never see justice, mothers who never stop grieving. So the question remains, how many lives must be stolen before change becomes real? How many courtrooms must echo with injustice before the world admits what's been true all along? That equality isn't promised, it's demanded. Marcus's story is one of survival, but it's also a reminder. This isn't just his fight, it's ours, because justice should never depend on power, privilege, or the name you carry. It should belong to everyone. And so I leave you with this. When the gavel falls, whose voice will be heard, and whose life will be forgotten?